That's right, Mr. Worm. You can run, but you can't hide. Oh, you can. Hello again. As you probably know, all of my worm bins live outside. One of the consequences of that, particularly for the plastic bins, is there's always going to be moisture on the walls on the inside. And that's because of the temperature difference. You can see there's a lot of casts on the roof there and a worm. And because the sides and the roof are moist, it encourages the worms to go exploring. Worms are less inclined to drag themselves across dry area because they're actually shedding moisture to do so. And they know that they need to stay moist at all times to breathe. So this is the working tray of the worm tower. That bedding is probably about 10 degrees, 12 degrees, and it's about 7, 8 degrees outside this evening. So the temperature difference will create the moisture on the inside of the bin. One of the ways that I deal with the escapees, and I have always found it the most effective, is to use cardboard or leaves around the bottom of the bin, wherever the bin is located. Now this at the moment is sitting in a cheap plastic greenhouse, but I still put cardboard on the bottom. And if I move this red container, you can see that the cardboard looks completely different. And in fact the worms have formed a little herd underneath that container. Now I didn't put that container sitting on top of the worms. That was sitting on the sheet of cardboard. But the escapee worms have made their way under the cardboard and they've eaten it away. I think it's also interesting to note that the top end of the cardboard is pretty much untouched and all of the worms are congregated in one area. And there was some interesting work done a few years ago by a PhD student in the University of Liège, I think it is. I think that's how you say it, in Belgium. And what she discovered was that worms actually have a herding instinct. Now, the way I'm picking up the worms is just to create a little ball with the bedding and press it into them. That's the easiest way to pick them up from an uneven surface without injuring or damaging the worm in any way. Yes, this lady discovered that worms actually have a herd instinct and they communicate by touch. So she established that they don't leave a chemical trail behind. So the worms are not following a chemical trail left by another worm. They're actually grouping together, touching each other, crawling across each other, and then when one moves, they all move in the same direction. You can see there's another little herd there. I've also got a snail and a slug, which I'll remove. So this may explain why they're all congregated at one end of that piece of cardboard, and the top end is pretty much untouched. They've all just moved as a group, or found each other, and then stayed as a group. Now they'll stay together. This herd instinct will help protect them. You can see that the worms are looking very healthy. For creatures that are currently living on cold concrete, they don't look any the worse for wear. They're looking quite lively and healthy and well. So all I'm going to do now is simply replace that cardboard. I've removed all the worms. I've put that cardboard down. Now there's bound to be worms living under here because this worm tower was sitting on several sheets of cardboard piled up together, and all of that is gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this up now, and I'm going to come back tomorrow night. So about it'll be a bit more than 24 hours. It'll be about 30 hours later. We'll come back and we'll have a look. And my money says that there's going to be worms underneath that tower which will have found their way into the fresh cardboard, or there's going to be fresh escapees will find their way into their new bedding. So here we are the following night. It's about 9 p.m. So apologies in advance for the shakiness of the video and the fact that I'm filming it with a flash on. You can see all the casts along the side, so the worms have been moving around. This wasn't done since yesterday. I mean, these are much older. But you see that gap there? That gap to a worm might as well be the Grand Canyon. Any size of worm will get through that gap, and that's one of the issues with this worm tower, or any type of tower system. And it's also another reason why you can't leave it outside unprotected, because if it rains, all of the trays are going to get soaked because it's not weatherproof or waterproof in any way whatsoever. So I think that's a bit of a problem. I'm going to do a review of this tower, how I found using it for the last year and a half or 2 years, however long I've been running it. And I think that's one of the negatives, is it's not a weather sealed unit. So that's the cardboard we put down about 30 hours ago. I'm going to have a look. Now you can see there's casts there already. So there's been some worms, we know that at the very least we know there's escapees. but they might not be new escapees. And there's our worms. Once again, in a herd. That guy's trying to disguise himself as a piece of cardboard, so he thinks I won't notice him. Now, worms will leave a worm bin for numerous reasons. Some because the bin has become toxic to them, a dramatic change in the bedding, for example. They're very sensitive to they're very sensitive to changes in the atmosphere. If there's a lot of noise or pounding on that bin from rain, that may encourage them to move. Now, I'm just going to have a quick look around the garden just to show you how many escapees I actually have at any one time. So I've just moved that bag, and there's that guy there, rushing away from the light. I'll move the next bag. Yep, more worms under there. You see the way he flattened out his tail really quickly? Although there's nothing to grip on, but he'll use that tail to, if he was in that crack in the paving there, that tail would actually wedge him in. Just makes it more difficult for a bird to remove him, I guess. Now, I've tidied up this area. This is up near the top of the garden, and if I move that plastic bag, I found loads of worms up here before, but I've moved that bag now, and there's still 2 there. So I've just refreshed the cardboard around that Dalek bin. So that'll give them a bit of cover for the next couple of weeks. If I look in another Dalek bin, you can see the moisture there on the side. Now, it's much colder tonight. It's actually, I measured it, it's 4 degrees outside. It's again a little bit warmer in the Dalek, and therefore we have the moisture. You can see how cold it is. You can see my breath there. So this is the large green bin. There's a very wet blanket on the top of there. That wasn't put on that for insulation. It was just a place to put the blanket, and I never moved it. There's a single worm there. I don't believe he's on his own. There's probably more. There's another single worm over the other side of the bin. And if we have a look inside, I'll bet you there's loads on the roof about to get out. There you go. There's 1, 2, 3 fell off the roof. There's a guy up there. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with these bins. The bedding is absolutely fine for them. They're being well fed. Temperature is okay. It's a bit low, so I'm going to try and bump up the temperature a little bit by making hot spots, and I'll do a video on that. But you can see there's lots of individual worms. These guys are doing the flower pot formation dance. They're actually trying to disguise themselves to look like the base of the pot. They're in a circle around the base. This is sitting on top of the loose brick container that I have where I store the finished vermicompost. Being loose brick, there's lots of air gets through and it doesn't dry out. And when it rains, some rain does get in, so it keeps it moist. But if I move these planks, you can see those worms there. Move this one, more worms there. And you can see all the casts. So, I mean, they've been here for quite a while. This wood is very soft and rotting, so they're actually probably feeding on the bacteria that's digesting the wood, and they're digesting the bacteria that's on the wood. That's just what the loose brick looks like. If I move this leaf, this is up near the shed that's coming down now. This is the shed I referenced in an earlier video I'm going to knock down and rebuild. That guy's trying to disguise himself as a leaf. It's not working. But if I swept up or cleared up this area here, there would be hundreds and hundreds of worms. If you've seen my video on building the soil with worms and organic matter, you'll know an awful lot of them make their way into the garden itself because of the amount of host manure that I have there now. So just move that old car mat, worms under there. They're everywhere. Absolutely every single container in my garden has got escaped worms underneath it. It's not a problem. They're not escaping because there's a problem with the bin. They're escaping because that is what some worms will do. If there was a major bailout of the worm bins, that would tell me there's something seriously wrong, either with the bin itself or with the bedding. But there isn't. There's always going to... If you have bins outside, there is always going to be worms who wish to leave the bin for whatever their reason. Who knows? Who knows what goes through a worm's mind? So I find this to be the easiest way to deal with the worms. They're very, very efficient creatures. They don't like expending energy that they don't have to. Once they leave the bin, they're going to come to rest at the nearest point to that bin where they can find shelter, darkness, and food. So if you leave cardboard, leaves, even pieces of old wood, old timber, around the base of any of your outdoor worm bins. If you do have escapees, you simply need to move whatever you've put down and you'll find the worms there. Okay, well that's it. I just wanted to show you how I deal with my escapees. I hope you found something useful or interesting there. And apologies once again that this video was so jumpy. I mostly filmed in the dark. I just thought I'd give you a quick look at how I deal with my escapees. Okay, that's it for now. As always, thanks for watching. Bye for now.
I found it. Oh, Diggle. Diggle.
Go and tickle it in.
Games me.